them up, right?
Yes, let's go.
This look is called We Drink from a Fountain of Youth and Excellence, right? It's a good time. Thank you both for being here. So, Fran, you're in a great seat. You are a leader among leaders, rainmaker, team owner, right? In the industry for over a decade, 15 years-ish. Definitely in the top 2 of your company, and so honored to have you here. Thank you for being here. Courtney, no one introduces you like you. Tell us who you are and where you're from.
I am an indie broker owner out of Los Angeles. We recently expanded into the Florida market, so I have a partner there at Acme, Florida in Orlando. And I'm a bit of a rebel in real estate.
We love rebels. Yeah. We need to be rebel-like because we are grappling, right, with some of the most challenging. We see great people, they're moving, they're spending a ton of money, they're stressed out. And so let's talk about the educated client. I feel like we're in agreement that an educated client is probably a better client than someone who is just remedial and that we're not educating as leaders. So how are you empowering and educating your consumer clients?
I would say the first thing that makes money is accuracy. And I think people are extremely adept in smelling nonsense. So I think accuracy is probably the best way to educate and prepare your client. I usually am 10 steps ahead of what I see happening so that I can make sure that everything is managed, meaning you're giving them agency in it, explaining what might play out, what may not play out, what are the pitfalls, how to actually mitigate that, and what the intention is. And I think once you're clear and very straight, and it's almost like when you're a parent, you kind of prepare so that there's no surprises, because when there's a surprise, there's fear, and then there's distrust.
That's so true.
Yeah, I think that accuracy is extremely important, but I think we as agents need to do a better job of reading contracts, and we need to do a better job of working with brokers who ensure that we know how to do our job under all of these changes that are happening. I've been doing buyer agency presentations and exclusive agency for over a decade. For me, the fact that people are talking about you have to do a buyer presentation is like, I know.
Sure.
We know. But what I've learned with these tough transactions is that the contracts don't matter as much as you think they do. For example, I'm sure every single one of those people in the lawsuits had a contract that said the listing agent was paid some percentage that they were going to then share with a cooperating agent. So it seems like if there's a blank space there and we're having a conversation with a contract, that should be enough.
Right, it should be.
I have a horror story, which I'm happy to share. I had a renovation resale client. That's what we mostly do. She finished a garage like a yoga studio, wanted me to advertise the overall usable square footage. It's very popular practice in LA. What we do is we advertise, but then we break it down. You know, we provide like the assessor's record, the appraisal from any previous transactions, that kind of thing, is disclosures. Mind you that every single one of the contracts says buyers to do their own due diligence, buyers to do their own due diligence for square footage, permits, whatever. This buyer, who was upset about the square footage being advertised different ways, which we all know, even a floor plan person can do a different square footage than the tax record, and
it's
whatever.
Different perspectives you're collecting, yeah.
Found a way to litigate, despite the fact that she had been provided the appraisal and the assessor's record prior to even writing the offer and signed receipt that she received it. So what I learned in this transaction is if there is a concern, don't rely on the written contract. Make an addendum with the help of your broker or your legal representation that is specific to the problem, so there's no confusion that this person understands there's a difference in the square footage. Here's what it is on appraisal, here's what it is on tax, here's what it is in the MLS. It has to be crystal clear, or they still have rights to sue.
Right, that specificity behind the topic that is of concern is really key.
Sometimes we get lazy.
Right, and sometimes we go to Harvard and learn a pricey lesson, right?
Yeah, it's a pricey lesson because you think by disclosing that you're protecting yourself, but even when you've disclosed, there's still more we can do, I guess is what I'm saying.
Sure, sure. And you do a lot. I mean, in New York City, let's just say it, one of the most competitive markets, right? And so you were saying earlier how accuracy is the currency, really.
I cannot stress enough how you have to be so adept. We had a gentleman, you know, sometimes the biggest clients are the ones where you have the worst demise. That was this, a huge client. And the purchase was a big one. It was over 27 million. And the purchase was taking place during COVID. And they were doing drive-by appraisals. And the product was so unique. It was a pre-war condo between Fifth Avenue and Madison. And it just doesn't exist. Predominantly, it's co-op. So all of the appraisals were comping post-war, co-op, nothing fit the bill, and the appraisal came in incredibly low. And my client thought he'd bought a lemon, and it wasn't until we got a proper appraisal done by someone that speaks to the Federal Reserve, such as the Miller Samuels appraisal company.
And by the way, you put that together.
Yeah, I paid
You
for
were
it.
the impetus to make the subject matter, to really insert the subject matter expert to save the transaction. So your Rolodex, as
you
it were.
have to believe. You have to believe in what you're doing. You can't BS it. And so I was like, this is so off base. And the company that was issuing the loan was not a lending institution by nature. It was an investment for high-profile net worth clients, but they don't do a lot of residential. So it was just like Dumb and Dumber, and so I had to like manipulate the whole thing and get it redone. And it wasn't until after that, and having him go out because he was expecting more kids, that he now needed a bigger place, that he recognized what he bought was actually a diamond. And it was like the most stressful experience, because you're in COVID, you're sitting in your car as your office going, 1 moment, please. You know, it's just crazy. It was amazing.
Balancing Cheerios as a mama bear CEO, right?
It was on.
Yeah.
It was on.
So I think the currency of our relationships too, your tenured relationships are so key.
You have to know.
I think it's also about not letting the deal die. And let's face it, most agents are responsible for hitting roadblocks and not knowing who to ask, where to go, or how to solve
turn
it.
it.
So
Yeah.
they just let their clients lead once they hit that wall. So that's why you're a boss, because you hit the wall and you're like, I gotta find a solution. So for us too, appraisal wall, we're finding a new lender, we're extending the financing contingency because we know the seller wants the price, right? So we're gonna find a way to make the deal not fall apart and coach our clients through the idea that the appraisals are subjective.
Well, they're typically banks underappraised by 10%. Now you put in someone who's from Weeha Hoo-Ha that has no concept of the inventory they're comping, and it's drive-by, it's like complete disconnect. And so you have to really know your stuff, that accuracy word again, to really trust what you're selling is really on par, and then having to get the right ingredients. And when you've got top people who know and understand how to do what they do, they reinforce it and it changes the narrative. And all of a sudden you're like, okay, we're not in the land of nod, we got this.
Right, and you said in New York, you can't talk to the appraiser as the agent,
illegal,
right?
correct. You are
So
not.
in California, we can, and what we do, because we're always selling the most expensive house on the street in renovation resale, which is basically fancy flipping.
That's the technical term,
Fancy flipping.
Renovation resale.
Yeah.
We do that, flipping has a bad rep, so we're trying to change the
I think
PR.
it's brilliant.
Thank you.
I like it.
But we provide the tax record, the permit history. We itemize comps because in LA it's popular for the listing square footage to not match the tax record, ironically. So if they're just basing it on what's in the MLS, they're frequently wrong. So we get all the data for them prepared with a list of all the amenities and improvements, and we hand that over to the appraiser. So we kind of do their job for them.
You write the contracts.
What do you mean?
In California, right? You prepare the contract.
Agents prepare the contracts, yeah.
We don't, not in New
Oh,
York.
you have lawyers do that.
Uh-huh.
It's a big difference.
So
I'm
attorney
happy for them to
state,
do it.
You write, so
Yeah.
in New Jersey, the agent writes
Agent does it?
the contract.
You know, at Acme, I started an 11-week training program for new agents because I realized even if they were at other firms before they came to Acme, they hadn't read the contract, which is terrifying.
Yeah.
How do people get their licenses without ever actually reading every single word of the contract you're sending off to your clients? I bet there are people in this room who haven't read the contract. Thank you. What's that?
Why aren't more people clapping for
Yeah, where are the claps?
Because New Yorkers don't do it.
Stingy on claps
But
for that, right?
it's true. It's true.
Yeah.
And so that's a place on a baseline where we have to start.
Well, imagine the doctor not reading their own script. Good grief.
Well, the liability we have as agents and brokers and teams, and especially now in light of these loopholes, is so grand that if you aren't completely 100% confident in your understanding of what you're asking your client to sign, you are toast.
Well, as a licensed professional, frankly, you're committing malpractice. Let's call it what it is, because you have a fiduciary responsibility. I don't care if
That's
you're on
right.
the planet Zeptar or if you're on the continental US, right? I mean, you have a fiduciary responsibility, and that's an 8-figure, 6, 7-figure product.
Right, and I'm saying that even as I say the contracts ultimately don't matter, like 99% of the time they do. I mean, it's the
Nuance of it.
the nuance is that there's civil action,
Sure.
ambulance chasers. There are attorneys out there who are like ready to make accusations that have nothing to do with this, just to jump it out of the mediation and arbitration clauses that are in the contract. So it's a fine line we walk. It's heavy liability. Who you work with really matters. Who your broker is really matters. So maybe instead of considering, oh, it's a big brand with all this tech or whatever, who gives you the care to make sure you're an expert in your field and the confidence to have your back when the transaction goes south?
Sure,
Who's
you're a
answering the phone in the middle of the night?
And who's taking the heat when it doesn't go together?
Exactly.
That's right.
That is the key.
Absolutely. That's my next tattoo. Who's taking the heat when it all blows up like nitro, right? I mean, that's the reality, isn't it? It's your name and it's your, it's your reputation. So let's talk about
the truth.
tell the truth.
Always.
Yeah, right?
And
Yeah,
that's
that's-
the hardest thing, is to stay true to it in close proximity to someone else that may want you to say something else.
You say tell the truth, and that makes me think about how in the era of social media, people have been kind of willy-nilly giving themselves titles that don't make sense to me.
Like what?
Like a director of estates or CEO of a team, or, I mean, I love our industry so much, but being a CEO of a company is a very high liability. I can tell you from personal experience, being a broker, a founder, and a CEO of an actual company is much more intense than leading a team. I respect team leaders. I feel like they're the best in the business.
Builders of people, and the people are the currency, respectfully. Yeah.
Yeah, we either need a standard for titles or something so the consumer's not misrepresented, feeling
They took them
misrepresented.
away.
What's
We
that?
used to have them, they took them.
Used to have standards?
Yes, we used to have managing director, senior. They took them away.
I think on social media, I see people kind of who have had one deal, calling themselves
Oh, yeah,
top
now they're a
realtors
coach,
and stuff
right?
like that.
Everybody's number one.
Be wary of the naked one offering you a shirt. How about that? Let's give more advice now. So, let's give more advice. I mean, you have, Courtney specifically, you have been doing buyer agency agreements.
Yes.
I'm guessing the compensation has been noted in there for over a decade.
Yes.
Like, do you have any advice when it comes to that topic for the room?
Absolutely. So you define your value in your first meeting. I don't use the open house meeting or the cold call to do the buyer presentation. I'm setting up a time because I'm a professional and my time is valuable. I'm an exclusive agent, we're an exclusive agency. I only work with people who want to work with me, and they want to work with me because I know my shit. And now I'm going to show you why you need a buyer agent. Here's my value, boop, 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 boop. And at the end of the call, I can say, now you can start shopping for a house instead of shopping for an agent. And that is enough usually, because shopping for an agent is the result of the portal experience, and I do think that it's stressful for a lot of people. They feel hounded at open houses, they're getting a billion emails from a million different search portals, they're doing all the work themselves. It's no wonder they feel like, what's the value of a buyer agent? Because they're searching, they're finding, they're calling listing agents, they're setting up appointments.
They feel like they own the job.
Yeah, but you know what? They don't know the latent impact of that, meaning they don't know if there's radon gas, if there's a cracked foundation.
A high water table.
You're buying an illiquid asset. You kind of want to know exactly what you're putting your money into. I think it's absolutely a liability not to have one.
I always say, if you have a Ferrari, you're not going to take it to Joe Schmo down the street auto body clinic because it's an expensive car. And even though, people say it's the most expensive thing I've ever purchased, and maybe it's only 20% down to the most expensive thing you've ever purchased, mortgage at a great interest rate with tax benefits and an appreciating asset. It's still an expensive thing, right?
Sure, fair.
So you want a specialist. You want a specialist to help you.
That's right.
And it's an important distinction. I take it as an imperative for our industry. Like, NAR should be doing ads about the value of representation as opposed to the logo of the Realtor Association. The public needs to know what we do and how valuable we are.
Correct. I think there's I think we
You
turn a
clocked that
key
up.
and they think we make 6%. And I think it couldn't be further from the truth. But I think because there's such a low bar of entry, there's this sort of belief that anyone can do it. And I think when the markets are not so healthy, that's when you start to see the brokers that hold their level. And I think that's when you go, I want to be with that. I want to sit in that.
That's right.
Does anybody know if the people who sued in the
appealed.
lawsuit, did
They're
they end
appealing.
up buying a house with an agent and paying the buyer agent directly commission?
I don't know yet.
I wonder about that.
Fun facts. So listen, thank you for sharing your genius, truly. Both of you are absolutely subject matter experts, and we are grappling through the toughest transactions. So high five, and thank you for the contributions.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.